Mumbai, student of Iyengar Yoga, as she says, for many decades. I am Nidhi Gandhi, and along with my colleagues, Hina Udeshi, who is a teacher at Iyengar Yoga Ashray Vadodara, and Angira Shah, who is also a co-practitioner, Iyengar Yoga practitioner with me. On behalf of all of them, we thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation to talk to us about your book, Imagine If, which is a wonderful book of stories of ordinary people with extraordinary greed. And it is now back in stores after being out of print for 2 years. So the book is here. It's an amazing book about people, their attitude and perspectives while facing situations, challenging situations and circumstances. So very inspiring, beyond words. It is also it is beautifully interwoven with practical yoga philosophy, through stories. So thank you for this opportunity to talk to you, ma'am. And we have questions from students also, and all of us would like to talk to you about it and learn more about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Rajvi. So, like I was saying, the book is so beautifully and simply written that anybody can pick it up and understand it. There's no great knowledge required. And I don't know how many people you've converted to yoga or Iyengar Yoga after reading this book. Non-practitioners, I'm very curious to know if you've got feedback from any non-practitioners. That's not a part of my questions, but yeah.
No, actually, I wouldn't really get, because the book came out during the pandemic. So I have no clue about the reach of the book in that sense, except when the publishers told me that they were out of print, whatever stocks they had. And that was 2 years ago. So I did give it to a couple of people who came back. Yeah, interestingly, one fine day I get a message from some person who says, I am the commissioner, blah, blah, blah. And I'm wondering whether this is one of those scam messages. And then it turns out that he had been a student and he contacted IRMI and contacted. And after that, he put it across. He happened to be one of the very senior government bureaucrats. And he read the book, and then he organized a couple of classes for the entire team of his in the bureaucracy. So that was an interesting thing. Otherwise, yes, I've got feedback from a few people, but otherwise I wouldn't really know because there's no contact as such. So I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll start with my actual question. What inspired you to write this book, and what kind of challenges did you face while putting it together?
Well, I don't think there was any inspiration as such. I was meeting a publisher for Yoga for Sports. So that was Westland Publishers. And that point of time, they said, can we have, do you have suggestions for any other books? And I gave a couple of topics and, something in mind. And they said, oh, why don't you write on this? So I said, no, I haven't really written a book. No, why don't you write? So that's how they sent a contract and I started on it. And then, I have written many of these stories. I have met these people across, and I'd written some of it in the Yoga Rahasya. And these stories were vivid in my mind. So that's what, when it was a very informal conversation with this editor. And then she says, write it. She sent the contract, and honestly, I never really got down to it till they gave a very deadline. And then I possibly started writing it quickly. After I wrote it, I had second thoughts whether it's going to be interesting, whether people would read it. So the first thing is I gave a couple of people and they didn't say anything. Then I gave it to my artist and she was saying I'm a visual person. So I wasn't really very sure till the book came back after it was published. And Birju, whom you know is my brother, he I saw him reading it, nonstop. Then I said, okay, it must be interesting for people to read. So till it came back, I didn't know how it would have been received by people.
Wow. Very inspiring.
Buying it, to gift it to people and, this thing. So that's when I realized, okay, it is creating the impact that the stories I wished would have created, because they did inspire me a lot. All these people more, so I was happy that they are giving people some strength, especially during the pandemic where every small thing became a big thing. Everybody was so stressed. And you realize, life is not as difficult as it seems. I mean, all of us feel our problems are the biggest in the world. Nobody has a bigger problem than mine. And then when you read about this, and since I've met these people in person, I always wondered, like, we selected ourselves to feel unhappy. There is always the bright side. So, quoting from Shirley, I mean, she's been a friend, and she once said, I mean, imagine somebody being in a cancer hospital, undergoing chemotherapy for the fourth or fifth cancer, and going to corners and windows and taking pictures, and photographs. So to me, that was a big thing, instead of, sitting on a bed and feeling, why me? So that's something which was very inspiring. And, when somebody actually asked her, I remember Rohini at Yoga Shri, when she had come, saying, do you really have cancer? And she's saying, why? Do you need a label here or something? So, that lightness with which one can handle an issue, to me, that's a big thing. So then that issue becomes a non-issue. So I think that's been very inspiring. So it's not about looking at positive side of things. It's just looking at things with a different perception. So that's, I think, the biggest inspiration.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Angira, you're muted.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Very true, because ma'am, for you to have gone through it, to even come up compiling all this, to say you'll put it so simply, and for us to be able to read it, get inspired with a different perception. So that is a wonderful thing. And I'm sure everybody feels that way for whoever has read the book, or I'm sure who's going to read it further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in continuation, in the tense moment before the operation, how Shirley quietens her mind in the few minutes through Sarvangasana. How would you recommend or, guide us through that in the such tough situations?
Well, talking about Shirley, she is quite, I would say, a character. That point of time, the way she narrated it to me, it was very amusing, honestly speaking. I mean, imagine going to a hospital with a bolster in your hand. I mean, that's something very weird. And then telling the doctor that I'm going to do Sarvangasana. And most of the time, you will think this is weird and it's a made up story. I mean, which surgeon is going to say, I'll wait for you? When you say that. And but knowing her, it is easier to let her do what she wants rather than argue with her. And that's as simple as it is. And we all know what Sarvangasana does. I mean, as practitioners, it immediately quietens your mind, especially when you're doing it with a chair. See, all the anxiety, the stress is on the frontal brain. So, we think, and then we get into a loop of thinking, and then we get into a state of anxiety. And then, these are the ups and downs. So the moment you get into Sarvangasana, you get into the back brain. So moment you get into the back brain, anxiety subsides. So that is the analysis I'm doing. But from what she said, and what, I mean, we've experienced it with many people, that moment you get into chair Sarvangasana, the mind quietens. So that's what it does. Whether you're doing a Purvottanasana or a Setubandh Sarvangasana or Sarvangasana, you get to the back brain. But to me, I mean, this was all later. Initially, it was all amusing. Initially, it was unreal. I think that the way one looks at life is very different. I mean, I've not written about this, but an anecdote that, imagine she's going from Mumbai to Tel Aviv with some 60 kilos. Now, which airline is going to allow 60 or 70 kilos, where the allowance is 23 or 25? Which airline is going to allow it? And she goes through. And I wonder, is she just making up stories? Because it's unreal without making any extra payment. So I asked a friend, Koka, who is there, and I said, she's saying yes. And I cannot tell you how embarrassing it was for us to be around with her. She did. She opened her bag and she's saying, I can't throw away this stuff. So she calls people, a nice sweater, a nice jacket. Hello, sir, do you want it? Because they're not allowing me. And imagine an airline queue doing such a weird thing. And then the crew didn't know how to, I mean, the people at the desk didn't know how to handle it. They said, please go. I mean, of course, an Israeli Airlines, but But this tells me how one really thinks out of the box. I'm sure any of us would have either have paid up or called somebody if you are in your hometown and please collect the rest of the baggage. So I'm just giving an example at how one can think out of the box. And it is at that point of time that you realize that when you have a problem, most of us go into that same frame of analyzing and thinking about future. But to think out of the box and look at it from a different angle sort of changes the way we look at life. And I think this is what is very, very fascinating to me. Like most of us are in a mold, maybe because it's our upbringing, maybe it's our education, or maybe it is, cultural. We are in a mold. But the moment we start looking just from the different perspective, everything seems very different. So this is what I realized in all these people. Whether it is common in all people with adversities, I really don't know. But I don't think so because we don't see it all the time. So I do see a thread of yoga playing a big role in this.
It's quite literally, as Guruji said, to take each moment as it comes. Like Guruji would say, every day is a new day. And it's quite literally like that. You're coming with no past baggage or nothing.
Absolutely.
Thinking this will be like this.
Absolutely. And that is a big lesson for even teachers of Iyengar Yoga. You may come prepared, but there you see a student in front of you. You may have your outline, but you can't be, because the moment you're prepared, you are rigid. So you
Yes.
have to be prepared with insight so that you can handle anything, but not objectively. So I think this is where the subjective practices help us.
Also, the slotting that we kind of do when we see somebody at the beginning of class, somebody new who starts talking, it's just in your mind, you're slotting them that, okay, this person's, whatever. And it's completely different if we don't have that mindset, then we are surprised at what they can or cannot do.
True. Because human mind tends to come to conclusions very fast.
Yes.
Judgmental. And especially if you're a teacher or on a pedestal, you are much faster because you think you have the authority to do it. While in reality, in fact, you need to be more open. So
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Should I continue, Angad?
Mm-hmm.
So we are normally told that the practice of yoga may even spread the cancer further when you're talking about Shirley. So how does that explain Shirley's continued practice of yoga through the years? Because as a general rule, most teachers will say that, okay, yoga.
Our understanding of practice is very different from her understanding of practice. You see, I have seen her teach. I have seen her, what she considers practice may be something like 0.0001% of what we do. So when she sees certain videos, she's pretty strong about it. This is all wrong. So for simplest of things, when you talk, she says the armpits are where there is problem. And all she would do is possibly sit on a sofa or 2 chairs and extend the arms to the side with full support. Now, we would not call it practice. We would say, what are you doing? You need to do something, open the chest. So we, without an experience, when we start doing things, we presume this is practice. In her case, it is very, very different. And I realized it in 2 conditions. One, she was visiting and a friend had an accident and had just undergone surgery. And I was going to visit him. And she says, I'll come along. And I was a little awkward, because she had come to visit me, but I had to go. And she came along with me. And in the hospital bed, this guy has just come out of anesthesia after a 3-hour surgery. And she started adjusting him, the arm supported here. And I'm like, and he felt much better immediately. So you realize the extreme condition. Then there was another case where we were speaking to a support group of cancer people in Mumbai at Nanavati. And she made some statement that you feel after chemo, the fingers and toes, the extremities melting away. And you wonder what that means, because you sort of feel, and they immediately related to it, what it meant. Because see, our understanding is from our experiences or an objective understanding. So moment she said that, and that's the reason a simple thing is tie the belt, however loose it is, a loose belt where you have support on both the sides for the feet. So the understanding of practice is very, very different. What is being done, in fact, at a point of time, she had agreed to write with me, provided what has to be done at different stages moment the diagnosis come, waiting for the diagnosis, that is the greatest stress. Moment the diagnosis come, what to do during chemo, what to do during radiotherapy. So unfortunately, Westland closed down. So we had an agreement and it didn't. Now let's see if it comes up. So the practice is very, very different from our understanding. So I don't think we should delve into treating cancer patients. But yes, post that, it can help as a supportive therapy, because the teaching is extremely different. It is so, like, simple thing, like I remember Ardha Chandrasan, for example, or any poses, we will tell the first thing to a student, remove your socks. You can't do your practice with socks. Here, they wear socks all the time, even in standing, because the extremities are so cold and sensitive that they need that softness. So, these things, it only comes with actually spending some time with these people. So if there is anything, I rather go by those people rather than my understanding.
Okay, so that's very, very different from the way our mindset is.
True.
So right now, you would suggest that one does not propose a sort of a sequence for people who are.
No. First of all, there's not a sequence, because, in these people, I mean, say anybody who has had a chronic ailment or an acute ailment or a very severe ailment, every day is different. Morning is different. Next morning may be good. Third morning may be down. So you really cannot have a set pattern. You are addressing the symptoms for that moment. So you are literally in the moment, and that's why their mindset is also in the moment. So for that moment, okay, they're feeling it. They're feeling good today a little bit. The biggest problem is that when they recover, people think we have lost time and are in a rush to recover that lost time in terms of whatever profession or activities one is doing. I lost 6 months or I lost 1 year. So that is something which makes things worse, because you're already in a negative field. You are in a race and I'm left behind. But the moment you go across that and you're in the moment, okay, I'm feeling good today. Today is better than yesterday. And what did I do? So, that's how I think the changes start occurring, where you can live without being depressed or emotionally fragile. Of course, it's not easy. I mean, it's very easy to talk, and I've seen the ups and downs with her too. But I would say the ability to handle has been much better.
So if they are practitioners, they can essentially guide themselves. What makes them feel good?
I think so.
Okay.
But again, practitioners also have a baggage. I could do all this, so I want to do all that. So we always carry a baggage. One has to be very cautious. We always feel, oh, I have lost it because of this, and you are in a rush.
Right.
So I think the patience is the biggest thing. When you're a patient, you have to have the patience to handle it. Yeah.
So
Thank
surely in that case can be an exception, right?
Maybe.
Because, yeah, I mean, the way things are of what Hina asked, what you're explaining, I mean, a very different mindset to handle. And I don't know if I missed this bit in the book, but I'd like to know how many years of Iyengar yoga practice did she have when she was detected of her health
I
issue?
think, no, when she was detected first time, she was doing yoga, but she was not an Iyengar yoga practitioner. I think her father did it and she was introduced. She came to Guruji later, and she just entered the class, and immediately she had not mentioned anything.
Yeah, that bit is mentioned in the book. She was in the
Guruji caught
corner.
her.
Guruji asked, right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Rajvi, you must repeat that little thing. It's beautiful for people who haven't read the book. That
What part?
moment when you said that, she came without.
Yeah. So she entered the general class, and Guruji just saw her and said, no, she needs to be handled differently. And right through, and I can tell you, for years together, only Guruji was handling her. So that goes on to say that, when we say, can we start teaching? I would say no. Because even there, in the presence of Guruji, there were so many other teachers, but only Guruji would adjust her. So it requires tremendous amount of sensitivity, because they are hypersensitive, but at the same time, the pain, etc., overshoots. So there's a very fine balance.
Okay.
So personally, I think we need to be extremely cautious in these cases, because we really don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next question, ma'am, is we find a lot of distraction these days because of social media and all that. What will be your advice be for young practitioners where discipline needs to be imbibed and the balancing of the mind, body, emotions are all have to be involved in it?
See, I think it depends when you start. So if you're starting very young, then the practice itself is very dynamic. So it appears like you're being, doing it very fast, etc. But your mind, I think in an Iyengar yoga class, when you say, okay, straighten the knee, when you start with the very basics, extend the feet, extend the arms, their mind is getting occupied all the time. So that is the reason you'll find that when people start practicing class to class, they do find something which brings them back. Then it's up to the teacher to take them to the next level, where they are now connecting the actions, point A to point B. So initially, it's just you're acting on point A, you're acting on point B, you're acting on point C. The mind is occupied. But after that, that becomes a distraction. Straighten your elbow, straighten your knee, tighten your hips, whatever instructions, extend the spine. But then when you start connecting A to B, which were separate, then the intelligence starts flowing. And moment the intelligence starts flowing, you start getting absorbed. So where's the question of distraction? So there will be frames. For some people, it may be short time. That's the reason you'll have multiple poses. So maybe a long-time practitioner can go around for 20-25 minutes of various connectivities in Trikonasana. New student, you will try that in different poses. So that's how you build up, where your distractions. I mean, distractions, we're saying social media, but distractions are, what is Patanjali saying? Distractions of the mind. So it has always been there. Today, we are attributing it to a newer form of interaction and communication. But distraction of the mind has always been there, no? That's why it is a chitta vritti nirodha. There is distraction of the chitta. There has been. So today also.
Yes, but I think, yeah, ma'am. But I think in today's time, even to get attention span from the younger generation, because either you can blame it on the social media or not, is very, very tough, to bring them back. I think something that doesn't hold them, I'm not even relating completely to yoga or the postures, it's a general thing, correlating. So
I
then,
totally agree with you, Angira, because with 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you're seeing something else. So the mind is jumping all the time, with the
exactly,
reels and
yeah.
all. And I totally agree with you on that. And that is a concern because people's ability to focus is going to come down. Because you don't need to. You don't need that faculty of the brain. You're not letting it develop. And then possibly it subsides. Like we may have, maybe a generation earlier remembered phone numbers of 25 people. Today, we may not even remember of 5 people. I mean, over a period of time, people had a good sense of direction. Maybe that may disappear over a period of time if we have GPS. So certain faculties may get altered. But I think that the solution to that is also coming back through yoga. Because
Okay.
that's, I think, when they say there is darkness, you need some support. Maybe that is where, as much as we are having it, and I don't think we are having any business to curb what's happening. That is the way things are. But through that also, at least get them interested into this subject
True.
and then let them go deeper into the subject. So whatever fluctuations that social media is bringing can be brought back.
Okay. Yeah. I think from every angle it needs to be approached
Yes.
besides just yoga. So
Yeah. It
the
cannot be
young
just force.
generation
You
can.
can't say don't do it. Nobody's going to listen.
Yeah, it doesn't work, I think. It just
It doesn't
boomerangs
work.
back. Yeah, true.
That
Thank you.
kind of leads us into the next question is suggestions on guiding a practitioner when they're mentally and physically disturbed. Will the instructions be different? This is a question from someone.
See, I think both are interlinked because if you're physically disturbed or in pain, you're mentally disturbed. So it is, it is the mind that feels the pain in a way. And if you're emotionally disturbed or mentally disturbed, it reflects in the body. I mean, classical posture reflects it. I mean, as a teacher, you can read through the eyes, or anybody, many, mature people can read through the eyes of the people. I mean, eyes reflect a lot of things about what a person feels. So I think the practice would be at that point of time, would be to, supposing it is anxiety, I think there are 3-4 asanas which immediately, it's not instructions, because when one is disturbed, instructions don't go in, because their problem is the biggest problem. So instructions don't go. That's why I say in a therapy class, there should be minimal, you just go and adjust them. Because that processing faculty has decreased for that, because they are in pain, whether emotional pain or physical pain. Go and adjust them. Moment they have confidence and relief, then the instructions come in. So I would say if it's severe or to an extent that they cannot handle in the general practice, then you just put them aside and put them in specific asanas where they can stay longer and stabilize. So if they're having a knee problem, okay, you'll tie them up in Dandasana or Urdhva Prasarita Padasana, tie their legs up and let them rest. Once they get relief, they are ready. Same thing, if it's emotionally disturbed, I'll say go and put them in Purvattanasana. If it's a young person, let them do a couple of other Mukha Vrikshasana, Pincha Mayurasana, things like that, and then get them into the normal practice. However, if it is something which is more severe, then you put them aside and let them stabilize and then bring them in.
That
So,
actually
and
makes sense.
if it is very superficial, then normal practice, they will just get into the flow.
Okay.
So many times people will come a little low in class, but after the class, they go back fresh.
Okay. That actually makes sense, because a lot of times we wonder why we are tuned out, why the person has tuned us out as a teacher. And it makes sense that if they are so occupied with their own pains or difficulties or whatever, then yes, then they tune the teacher out. So then it's better to just physically go and correct them.
Yeah, I think there's a whole wall which, just blocks it. So you
Yes.
have to enter the other way around, I guess.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
think of
wanted to add
ourselves,
something.
na? If you are having a
Yeah,
big
true.
thing, supposing somebody is in severe grief, do you think they're looking around at who's coming, who's done what? No. If you are in that state, you don't know what's happening around you. So they are in that state, maybe at variable levels, but once they get out of it, they're back to normal.
Yeah, there's clarity then to enter. True.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, that answered the question. Yeah, go ahead, Angira.
This question is, of course, on behalf of one of the co-practitioners. In the chapter that you says, "Look, Ma, no legs," you said you could read the face, but took time to read the skin. If you could please elaborate on this.
See, the face expresses. And to be very honest, in the earliest classes, when Guruji would say, moving the skin, and it honestly didn't make sense. But you respect Guruji. Obviously, he is Guruji. But how do you move a skin? I mean, and the first few years, you can move your arms or legs. Later, you realize that sensitivity, how the mind gets you to get the skin, how the skin comes under the sense of perception and organ of action. So moment that comes in, then you start seeing, you can see, the say like a doctor or any of us would say when there's inflammation, there say, or a very crude example, a boil emerging, you see that redness, you see that hardness in the skin. Later you start seeing there's a change in the texture of the skin. It starts shining, which is different. So you start observing that, and you start observing that in the person. So where there is hardness, as supposing one particular part of your thigh muscle is hard, you'll see that bumpiness, you'll see that texture change, and that sort of guides. You'll see some redness. So that is what you start reading. So it takes time. It's a different eye which develops, and sometimes it's easier, some days it is not. So now when you're doing if you're a new teacher or a student will say, my legs are straight. And you will say they are not straight. But for that student, it is straight legs. My knees are straight. Then you realize after a few years, what you called straight was not really straight at all. I mean, especially when you could see it in Supta Padangushtasana. See the eye, it's not straight. And something when your teacher will say, I'm telling you it's not straight. But the student feels. So it's like that. Later you realize, later it appears straight to everybody. But to a trained eye, you can realize that there's a bump in the quadricep, there is a bulge in the calf, and top of the knee is bulging. So you don't see that initially. It's training and practice on your own self that you start seeing it in others.
Basically,
I
it's
mean.
just, sensitive practice that leads you to,
True.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Yeah, because you're right. Often when you say that your arms are not, the practitioner, if you are quite in the initial years, you do feel that you're doing it right,
Yeah.
and it's only when a correction is made, you also feel the benefit of that. But I guess it takes a lot of practice to be able to reach there.
True,
So
because
thank you.
that's where you can see it in others. You will go and tell, after a few years, you will start advising all your friends, pair teda hai, this is crooked, but you don't see it in yourself.
True.
Because seeing in ourselves is still more difficult.
Still more tough, yeah, right. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So one of the
Nidhi?
students has asked, do you suggest we too should occasionally plug our ears throughout the class or be blindfolded and attend class?
Yeah.
Blindfold if you want in your practice, now why class then? If you want to, do it. I mean, see, Guruji has very categorically said that, Yama Niyama teaches us the art of living life. Asana Pranayama is the science. And Pratyahara Dhyana is an experience. So, science, there is experimentation. So, you experiment on yourself, but that is after a particular maturity. You don't go into the lab when you have just started practice. So please don't start experimenting and doing some stunts and falling. But I'm talking after a particular level of maturity. You want to, okay, blindfold, put a bandage and do it. See what you were managing.
This is where I would like to add, instead of blindfolding, be submissive to your teachers. They are experienced and they are chosen in such a way that being submissive is as good or as effective as being blindfolded or plugged in.
Yeah.
Yes.
My experience
It's
from
surrender.
two major
Yes.
issues
True.
and the caring they give you,
True.
all the teachers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
See, we shouldn't see things, first few years, it is external practice. Same asana from Bahiranga becomes Antaranga. So what we are doing, okay, putting lines on the mat, arranging, fine, because that's the start. But if you get stuck there, then you're not going to get in. So the
True.
getting inwards is what comes. Then you start getting sensitivity. So
True.
from activity, it becomes sensitivity. So that comes when you start feeling.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that's
you.
why
Yeah, that's a
sometimes you'll
very,
find you have an experience in class, but when you try to imitate it in your practice, you don't get it.
Yes, true. Very true.
Because you
very
are
true.
trying to compare it and you're going to objectively do it. There, the teacher, like Hemant said, the teacher got you to do it.
True. True. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's a
Nandini,
very wonderful way you've explained, activity to sensitivity, from the external to the internal, which is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Nandini has a question.
Yes, Nandini Ben has a question.
Yes. So, hi, good morning, Rajvi.
Good
So,
morning.
just going forward on this, is it okay if a student, we want a student to experience, like say in Urdhva Hastasana, straighter arms, can we make the student look into a mirror and show straight arms and then ask them what is the feeling you have when your arms are like this, and then try to help them recreate that without the mirror, without looking at themselves?
Sure, why not? Sure.
Okay.
Because see, then, first of all, all of us have a little ego. So when I said a student says and believes that my arms are straight, you see, even if you are a student, we still have our ego. The teachers all obviously have an ego, because unless you have that on stage, you're not going to be able to teach. The trick becomes when you come off the stage and become off the teacher, you have to bring that ego down. Otherwise, you're destroying yourself. Now, for the student also, especially beginning, they'll feel, no, nahi, seedha hai. So then when they see it, they realize it. And then they try to straighten it. Although it's an external observation, they start feeling something. So initially, they may not even feel, at least they realize that that was not straight. So you're going from a negative to a neutral state. Then they start doing it. So that I has subdued. And once they start feeling it, then you are changing into your role of practice. So it can be done. It would help.
Yeah.
So
Because for my own, in my own experience, first 2 years, I think we used to do Urdhva Hastasana with a belt. I did not know that my right elbow was bent. My left one was straight. Once I happened to do it in front of a mirror and I realized, "Okay, my God, look at the difference."
Yes.
Then
Like
that set me thinking.
yeah. Like I just said, no, we will see it in others much faster than we see it in ourselves.
In
Because we can't
ourselves.
see else, So you'll say, oh, this person, your leg is not straight. See, your shoulders are drooping. We'll keep adjusting people. After a few years, I mean, it's not that you are a teacher or not a teacher, or forget anything. You will see your own friends and relatives, and if their shoulders are down, you will be tempted to go and correct them. You'll say,
Correct.
"Arey," you'll go and correct their shoulders. It is very intuitive to
Yes.
us because you feel good, you want to share that. And it's intuitively, it's not planned. So it is something like that. So moment we see ourselves in the mirror, one realizes it. Because till then, what is not normal feels is normal for a long period of time. So it's only when you see it, we realize it.
True.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Manoj Bhai also has some questions. Manoj Bhai, you can unmute and go ahead.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Rajvi ma'am. I read the whole book in a single day and I was so
Thank you.
impressed. It was very, very beautifully written. I have quite a few questions.
Sure.
One, how did Shirley 6 months prior, by doing Sarvangasana, come to know? And she went to the doctor and they didn't
Yes.
palpate any lymph nodes. And then she was diagnosed Hodgkin's later. So
I-
what was the feeling? Did you ever ask her that?
I told, she says it was uncomfortable. That's all she keeps saying. So,
Okay.
you cannot articulate, but there was, so possibly there is some level of sensitivity where you feel, the flow, quote unquote, like we are doing, supposing in our practices, you feel, I feel sensitive or feeling till this point, but not beyond. So
Right.
Tadasan, so must be something like that. But she said that something was not right. She didn't really know what was not right. She kept saying something was not right. And that's how she possibly contacted, and it was not visible enough to detect it.
And she was going for parathyroid surgery and she was allowed Sarvangasana.
That's
Doesn't
what.
Sarvangasana, constrict the neck for the
No, but
parathyroid gland,
if you are using a bolster and your head is pretty hanging, so you're not really doing any Jalandhar Bandha there.
Okay.
So it gives, the calmness of the mind.
Yeah, calmness of the mind, as Angira ma'am asked, you told
Yeah.
that was, but I was wondering that
No,
how
it's
that
with a bolster. So that's
with a
what, the
bolster.
height
Okay.
gives you the freedom in the throat. It's not a bandha there.
The other was radiotherapy given to Shirley, which his father was against, and that probably led to breast cancer and other cancers because radiotherapy will definitely suppress the whole immune system.
That's
Yeah.
what she says. Now, I really wouldn't be able to comment. And we are talking of something which happened about 35, 40 years ago. So
Right.
I would really not
Yes.
know what it is, or it's just a feeling. Sometimes many of us feel, okay, I did this treatment or I did this, and because of this, that happened to me after 20 years. Like people would say, when I was small, I was given steroids, and after 30 years, you say these are the side effects of that. So one doesn't really know. But that's, and secondly, you see, generally in such cases, remission, you will say it's 5 years, 6 years. So even if something happens after 35, 40 years, possibly nobody knows, nobody studies the effects of stuff for 30, 40 years. It's a lifetime, like. So one doesn't
Correct.
really know about it. So this is like, that's what she kept saying. My father was a physicist, and he said that radiation could, because it suppresses something, and who knows what pops up after much later.
True. Ma'am, the Xerox they wanted to do
Yes.
and they didn't want the spiral. Was it to strangle, the
Yes.
prisoner can,
Yes,
strangle
yes,
with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So they
can
don't
you,
even allow long threads.
yeah, because that also can be used as a,
So
yeah,
yeah,
that was
I mean,
very,
one would
very
never think
interesting.
about it.
Yeah, true. And what were the asanas done in a prison which was very, very confined and, that
No,
they
they
hardly
had,
had, because there were two of them in that same cell and still they were doing certain asanas. Which
so
were they?
see what happened, like they used to have class. So the class was a hall where, because I happened to see one of the classes, so the class was a hall. So the teacher was there. They were not allowed to touch anybody.
Right.
So just instructions, and there were the security guys also around. But they were just there in case, because they can get aggravated or something. But it seems nothing happened ever. So those instructions were given. Then possibly in the cell, what can they do? They can do a little tadasan or little uttanasan, or maybe something lying down, because they wouldn't be allowed any props. No, I mean, no belts or anything would be allowed.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
So do you
some
think it
simple
really
things.
reformed them, or is it something that you think of implementing at other places as well?
No, I tell you, because when we went there, when we entered, I'd never seen so many locks and doors in my life. It went through and through, and that was the afternoon time, so nobody was around. So that was it. And then after the class got over and there were people shifting. So maybe they possibly had some time in the open air or something. They must be going, and there was a big group shifting. So we were walking through the passage, and these guys were on the other side, and then the way they were hooting and booing, it got a little scary. Of course, you are there with the security and they are but then when you realize that maybe it's doing something, because what we are seeing is from that short period, but the authorities themselves were feeling, that the group which came for yoga was much, and then they would also ask from the library to get these books. So one of the guys had actually, got the books from the library, Light on Yoga, and kept talking about it. So yes, it did something, because see, also certain things, all these, many of these things are also play of the mind. I mean, it is in a state of a mental disorder that in many cases, they have done these kind of criminal activities. And sometimes when they do, I mean, I'm not talking of the group that came for class, but they do have some kind of a mental, I would quote unquote, disorder, which gets them into this kind of activity. So a lot of crimes would be of kama, krodha, moha, lobha. When you look back, most of the criminal activities would have their base in this, or reactionary.
Has it been implemented anywhere in India?
Many prisons, not Iyengar Yoga, but many prisons do have yoga now.
Okay.
But I think it would make a difference. Interestingly, I remember attending a conference in Kerala where they had yoga. There was a criminologist, there were a neurologist, psychiatrist, and the police. And all these were talking about the state of mind of a criminal. So it's interesting that the neurologist was talking of different neurological changes, which made people behave in a particular manner, especially consistently. We're not talking about the reactionary crimes. So it must be making a big change. So these are very fascinating things to actually, if one wants to implement it in larger groups and study what exactly is happening.
Right.
Both ways, in terms of effect, in terms of the internal changes, whichever is measurable.
Yeah. So would there be case studies where you take in, just specific 3 people and see them through, who have also been practicing yoga, meditation, whichever form, to calm them down, to see if there's reforming happening, as Avina was asking?
There are. I mean, I remember, I don't know whether we wrote, there was this case in the US. See, people do a first-time crime, which may be not really a big thing, but if they're put into prison and living in that environment, they get influenced negatively. So if the punishment that the person was given was to do yoga for 6 months or 3 months for some, a smaller crime. A crime is true. So those kind of things, they become more reforming. So possibly it can be a part of, I think it should become a part of at least the young minds,
Yes, I think so.
reform in the reform homes for the young adults who are kept in. Because otherwise they harden and come out.
Yeah.
And get worse.
That's a change of system. That's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a big change of system.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Nandini, you wanted to say something?
So this is in regarding to how Shirley felt that there is something wrong with her. So this I have seen in my patients also. They come with a problem. I cannot see anything wrong, but they say that kaik to barabar nathi, doctor. So the general tendency would be to just, reassure them, let them go, and think it's more of a mental problem. But I have seen over time, I will never neglect those patients. I will call them. Even if you're feeling well, come after 1 month, come after 2 months. And I will say in 50%, I have found some problem which is now visible to us. And the commonest example I give is that when we are about to fall ill, get fever, before the thermometer tells you you have a temperature, you know you have a temperature or you are going to get a temperature. So for fever, it is very common for us to feel that we are going to get fever, but similarly, there are so many things in which your body tells you that there is something wrong, but we are not able to detect it. And I'm trying to sort of sharpen my skill to detect at the earliest possible and not ignore a patient's complaints when they seem vague.
Mm. Mm. That is so true, because people do say, I don't feel good, and there's nothing specific, but you do know that afterwards something comes up. True.
Yeah, but it's a fine line between being paranoid and
Yes. so that is where our skill, so even I mean that applies to our class also, that sometimes a student says, it is impossible for me to do it. So whether to actually, I would not say force, but to sort of uh, uh, encourage them to do it or to stop.
Stretch it.
So that line also, it is something similar. So this is that skill which comes handy. So even as a teacher, you have to find that line. Okay, whether to let go, chalo chal se, it's okay if you don't do,
Yes.
or you must do. So that line, I think, as we practice more, it becomes
Yes.
more and more fascinating to walk on that tightrope.
You can see it. This person, yes, this person, no, where a person is pushing themselves. So I think it just comes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one more question.
I think here we should know that Ayurveda works, because in Ayurveda we can feel, if we understand our signals of the body, then we can detect earlier than allopathy detects. So this is what I have learned in Ayurveda. So after, allopathy treats after we get the signals, but Ayurveda treats before we get the signal, but we can understand, we get the symptoms, we get the signals. So that helps us treating ourselves earlier, before the, that bad part starts
No, that's
rising.
true. But basically, here we are trying to say that the person themselves are sensitive enough to feel what is not right and not to ignore it. So even like that's the reason we have all these diagnostic tests. I mean, a person with sugar of 400, fasting sugar or random sugar of 400 may have no symptoms, still something happens and then they realize it. So that's the reason one goes for all these checkups are recommended. So I think basically it boils down to increasing our sensitivity and respecting the sensitivity of others and understanding whether it is hypersensitivity or genuine sensitivity. So, moving from that phase of insensitivity to, it's coming back to what yoga is all about, neutrality. So if one is hyper, come back to neutral. And if it is hypo, come back to neutral or go up to neutral. That's it.
Javas is also in the meeting. I see him there. Welcome,
Oh, yeah.
Javas.
Hi.
Just one more. I think, Nidhi, we have time for one more, right?
Yes, we can have one more question. And
So there is a question again from one of the students. Iyengar Yoga is doing a lot for patients with Parkinson's. In probabilities, this must be post Guruji. Few lines on that.
Post Guruji means no, it has been being done for ages.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that we were approached by a support group in Mumbai who asked that, can we do something for patients? And we said, okay, we will surely get. And just with the background of, research, we said, okay, we'll do a research study. And therefore, we had a control study and we had a large group of people, so 30, 40. And since it worked, neurologists started sending. So this has been on as a group in Mumbai since 2005. So it's just that it has come into visibility to the outside world later. And this was all done under Guruji's guidance, obviously. Otherwise, none of us would have the courage to take up so many people with such a chronic neurological disorder. I mean, it's a big challenge.
Yes.
And it is more than challenge. I wouldn't even say a challenge. It's a massive responsibility and there's a lot of fear. I mean, to take them up. It's not something that can be done easily because these are very, critical cases. So it was just that, how it approached. And since we're seeing a large group, as a teacher, you see things, So when you see people with a similar condition, you catch things faster. So then you get your experience. So it's been, and obviously there were so many patients Guruji would do. So we would go there and learn, but in the class, nobody has gone and publicized it.
Right.
So here it is just that because it's a large group, people have seen it and now outside world writes about it once in a while. So people think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think are there any more questions? Nidhi,
There's one
you can take it
question
from
that
here.
just popped up, Nidhi.
Uh,
Somebody's asking about
yes.
dementia or Alzheimer's. So
Are there any asanas for dementia or Alzheimer's?
It is not what, I would say it is how it is done. So it depends now. So one cannot really generalize and give a listing. The whole thing is how it is done. So if it's a practitioner long term, there is a different way you would approach it. If it is a new person, it's a different way because these would also be, in most cases, older people. So if I would say, oh, go and do Shirshasana or something, will that person be able to do if they've never done? So the approach will be very different. So it will all depend on, because see, when you're talking of that, they may have other conditions also. So it's not like a prescription one can, say what to do.
Yeah,
It
that's
will
so
all
well
depend on
said
their
because people
condition.
are always asking for sequences. ये करने के लिए sequence दो.
Sequence तो mantra नहीं है. Yes.
Okay, I think.
So,
Yeah.
any more
Even
questions?
mantras were given at a particular level to a particular student by the guru.
True.
So it wasn't meant for everybody.
very true.
True.
So if a sequence can be given to a teacher by another teacher as a guidance, and then still that teacher would have to improvise seeing the student in front of them.
Right,
So it is always it is a guideline, but you can't use it as a prescription. It won't work or it may harm also.
Yeah.
See, even if you have medicine and somebody gives you a list of medicines to do, and others, why do you need a doctor? Find, okay, this
Yeah.
is the prescription. Okay, this condition, follow the same prescription. Does it work? It doesn't work. So same condition, same age, same body weight, it may or may not work. There'll still be a lot of adjustments. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nandini. It will be variable. There will be a broad system, but still there will be adjustments. I mean, she's not going to do all her surgeries. There will be a different way. It may appear same to the untrained eye, but to the trained eye, there'll be a lot of subtle adjustments.
So,
Yeah.
so any other questions or we wind up?
Okay.
Namaste, Jawahar sir. Thank you for joining us.
Maybe.
If you would wish to add anything.
Jai Janendra Ben. Namaste, all of you. No, nothing to
Namaste,
add.
sir.
Rajvi Madam is here.
Yes.
What can I add?
Oh my God. Middle of the night for you. So, yes.
Yes, it's middle of the night. You're back in Mumbai?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There were a few other questions, but I didn't know whether we wanted to get into them. It's already time. People have asked
Okay.
questions about briefly narrating how you could start with people suffering from the earthquake. And
Yeah, well, actually, as I've mentioned, it just happened, out of enthusiasm, agreed to go and then met Guruji. And then Guruji guided us, he did give us what asanas, but it was more on how we had to behave, which seems, at that point, like how we need to be like them to be accepted. And that's when we realized on first day when Anita and myself, we landed up with other two people, that people were not accepting. The organizers wanted you to come. So once we landed there, I mean, nobody comes, what are you going to do? So first, that was the first advice Guruji gave, that we had to be accepted by them. And it is just, call it grace. We started talking to people, interacting with them whole day. What are you doing there in the camp? And then somebody mentioned that my father-in-law has not slept. And just Gracie slept. That was enough. Imagine something as small with a pack support helped. And then people started coming in. And then, of course, once they come in, you can do things. So the first thing was motivating them, and talks didn't do it. They arranged for a lecture also. They all came to the Jamaat Khana. But next day, nobody turned up. So motivation doesn't come from talks and all that. They came and told us, हम लोग तो क्या है, कुछ खाना खाते हैं, अभी हमारा तो बहुत काम होता है, क्या फायदा है, क्यों हम योगा करें, हमें नहीं जरूरत है. So the need was different. So the talk didn't really do it. I mean, they heard very nicely, okay, we are guests there. But what worked was the sleep, and what worked was, our tent was open. People would come and sit and chat with us and, be with them. And then they felt comfortable. Till the most humiliating part was that we tried to overdress to be part of them, that they felt we had come from another camp, wearing old clothes.
That is also very interesting to have dressed differently. That is something we never think, because as Iyengar Yoga students, we are so tights and t-shirt with Perina Jawan, something like that.
And Indian Guruji had to tell us, and he said, okay, wear a sari, and we were all like, come on now, Guruji, we don't even do it routinely, and you expect us to go and, so theek hai, salwar kameez, and we made sure they were not new or shiny ones or, something which stood out. But later, I think we
overdid it.
But I think that was nice. It was that, we still remember, it's 25 years now, but the vibe that we got, I think that was really, it was a big eye opener, big eye opener, that when we start thinking, and here there was not even any yoga, but in cases of calamity, how people stand out, but at the same time they get grouped. Religion became a big thing that time. And it was natural because they had organizations which would help. So we had to respect it. They said it's a Jamaat Khana. I mean, he didn't specifically say, but it was understood. You don't go and recite Om there, and it didn't matter. We don't have to be, so, and then they took it very well. I think it was a big learning for us, and to see that in this condition also they were seeing, I still can't forget that man who said, બહુ બધા lecture આપી ગયા છે, પણ ભોગવવાનું તો અમારે જ છે ને. બધા આવીને કહી જાય, આમ નહીં વિચાર કરો, અમારે જ ભોગવવાનું છે ને. તમે પહેલા છો કે who has told us how. And that remained the importance of what you do. Not motivational talks may inspire for a moment. It may give you the thing that I will start doing it. Oh, this is very good subject, I should do it. But beyond that, very few will continue. So they are good. I'm not denying that. They will motivate you to start. But what continues is your experience. So I'm not against a motivational talk or anything, but long term is only how you do it. And that I think was the biggest learning for me there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there I saw the Kutchi grit, I must admit.
Yes, ma'am, very true. Just to go off your this session, but talking about gurus, I did mention to Hina and Nidhi, but I thought on this platform I should take the liberty. Way back in 84, when I went to Javaja, which is near Biawar in Rajasthan, and I was doing a project there. So our gurus then from NID, I think they all belong to the same time, 20s, 30s, 1920, 30s. So they said, dress up like them. If you have to even want them to hear you, go dress up like them, then get into their system, So I think that impact of getting clothes stitched once again, the gagras and tops and all that, help, because otherwise I would have never been
I think
able
that's
to
the first
convey
thing,
that.
no? The acceptance.
Yes, that's the acceptance. So I can relate it now. This was when I was still a very raw student, way
Yeah.
back. But when I read that, it brought all the memories back of how NID groomed us, so which was
So that
wonderful.
is where, you feel like Guruji, he could see
Yes, all the
far
gurus,
beyond.
yeah, far beyond, true.
It was in fact amazing. We got some insight into how learning with him, from the book, how it would have been for you. As in, we've never had the fortune of, learning in person, but reading your book was very insightful. I mean, giving it, every time you pick up, it's a different learning.
So happy that, I could communicate part of it.
Yes.
Also, I think the simplicity has created a great impact to a larger audience, is what I would say,
I think that was intentional, I would say. What
which has come
fascinated
across
me
wonderfully, ma'am.
was when people could write fiction and get people engrossed in the story, where they were, So I never wanted to write anything with frills or language, because
Yes.
I felt that it should something that should communicate and be read with ease. It should, if a person picks up certain books, they don't want to leave it. They don't have to sit back and think, after every sentence and say what has been communicated. Maybe it shows you have a lot of. So I wanted to do something like that intentionally.
I think she lost her.
And I'm glad that it came across. Even if you don't know English, you can read the book. So I said, okay, that tells me that I could communicate with as simple a language as possible. So I think that was a big compliment for me in that sense. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was very informative and insightful.
Thank you for organizing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Experience.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Lovely
Thank you
seeing
also, Jawahar
everybody
sir, for
here.
joining.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Bye.
Thank you, Jawahar sir. Thank you all.
Bye, Jawahar. Bye.
Namaste, all of you. Have a great rest of the day. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Namaste,
Wish you
all.
all the same. Thanks.
Yeah.